My name is Emma Anderson, and I chose Minnesota as my state for this project. I'll be talking about Minnesota's history, government, as well as its bureaucracy, voter participation, population, and state demographics, and key issues. Minnesota's history is shaped by its Native American residents, European exploration and settlement, and the emergence of industries made possible by the state's natural resources. Minnesota's legal identity was created as the Minnesota Territory in 1849, and it became the 32nd U.S. state. After the chaos of the American Civil War and the Dakota War of 1862 finished, the state's economy grew when its forest and agricultural resources were developed. Now known as the North Star State, Minnesota is home to forests, farmlands, and prairies, as well as 5.7 million people, ranking 22nd in population. Some key findings in 2024's demographics for Minnesota were the total population is projected to grow from 5.78 million in 2024 to 6.11 million in 2075. Natural change from births and deaths is expected to decline over the years, turning negative by 2065, indicating that deaths will outnumber births. Net migration will contribute positively to population growth, though the numbers are relatively modest compared to the overall population. Minnesota's population in the 65-plus age group will more than double from 2024 to 2075. The population in younger age groups shows a relatively stable but slowly declining trend. Black and Indigenous communities and other communities of color are projected to grow at a faster rate rather than the white population. For Minnesota's government, in Minnesota there are 5 officers: the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, state auditor, and attorney general. For the bicameral legislature, there's the Minnesota House of Representatives and Minnesota Senate. For the 3 levels of courts, there's the Supreme Court, Court of Appeals, District Court, and District Court. In the legislature, the House of Representatives and Senate has 134 representatives, 1 from each House district. It has 67 senators and 1 from each Senate district. They serve terms of 2 years for House members, 4 years for senators. But in years ending in 0, senators are elected to a 2-year term. Responsibilities for the legislature are introducing and studying ideas for laws, but all revenue-raising bills begin in the House. They serve on standing committees, pass state laws, pass the state's biennial budget, and can override the governor's veto. However, it requires 2/3 vote in both House and Senate. Each body begins regular sessions every odd-numbered year in January, and meets usually in February every even-numbered year. The body may meet for up to 120 legislative days during the biennium, but not after the first Monday following the 3rd Saturday in May. The body organizes on the basis of majority and minority caucuses and elects a member as presiding officer, which could be the Speaker of the House or President of the state. Speaker of the House, Chair of Senate Rules and Administration Committee, designates number of function chairs and members of committees, and designates number of committee members the minority appoints. The standing committees study and research bills, hear public testimony on bills, make recommendations to the full House and the full Senate committees, resolve differences when the House and Senate pass different versions of a bill, and consists of 3 or 5 members of each body. In charge of the legislative branch is the President of the Senate, Bobby Champion. For the executive branch, the governor has a term of 4 years. It requires someone qualified to vote in Minnesota, at least 25 years old, and a Minnesota resident for 1 year. Responsibilities are to administer laws and affairs of the state, appoint heads of departments and agencies, and act as commander-in-chief in state military forces. It also informs legislature of condition of the state, proposes a state budget, reviews bills the legislature passes, and can call emergency legislative sessions, as well as appoints judges to fill vacancies in district, appellate, and Supreme Courts, and can issue pardons and reprieves, restore civil rights to felons. The lieutenant governor serves for 4 years and represents governor, assumes governor's responsibilities in governor's absence or if a vacancy occurs, and assumes duties the governor assigns. The Secretary of State serves for 4 years and acts as a chief election official. It certifies official documents, the governor's executive orders, the laws for the legislature passes, and regulates Minnesota's businesses, as well as acting as a custodian of official records. The state auditor serves for 4 years, and they collect, check, and standardize financial information from local units of government and investigate audit reports. The Attorney General serves for 4 years and provides legal services to state government, represents the state in court cases, enforces laws concerning charitable organizations, and protects public rights. Last but not least, the state departments and agencies has 21 departments, which the head is decided by the governor. The agencies are independent, separate from departments. The governor appoints portions of membership. And the semi-state agencies are separate from departments and agencies and are not under direct appointive control of the governor. In charge of the executive branch is Tim Walz, aka the governor. For the supreme level of the judicial branch, the members are 1 Chief Justice and 6 Associate Justice, a total of 7 judges. They all serve for 6 years and hear appeals on decisions from the Court of Appeals, Workers' Compensation Court of Appeals, Tax Court, and persons convicted of first-degree murder. They also hear constitutional cases, interpret the law and Constitution, regulate all courts in the state, and recommend improvements of the judicial system, and oversee law practice and judicial planning. The next level is the Court of Appeals, which has 1 chief judge, 18 associate judges, and they all serve for 6 years. They also hear appeals on decisions from lower courts, hear appeals from administrative and agencies, and hear appeals from Commissioner of Employment and Economic Development. Then there is the District Court, which has 10 judicial districts, each with several judges. So there's 289 judges total across the state. They also serve 6 years and hear criminal cases, hear public policy issues, civil cases, hear juvenile, family, probate, and traffic cases. Lastly, there's the Conciliation Court, which has one conciliation court in each county. District Court judges serve as Conciliation Court judges except in Hennepin and Ramsey counties, where assigned attorneys serve as referees and they hear civil claims of damages up to $15,000, except for disputes over consumer credit transactions, which must be less than $4,000 to be heard in Conciliation Court. For the judicial boards and advisory committee, the Supreme Court and/or governor appoints members and they advise courts, and it consists of lawyers, administrators, legislators, judges, and lay members. In charge of the Judicial Council, which is chaired by Lori S. Gildea. For government programs, Minnesota offers SNAP, which helps Minnesotans get the food they need. They offer cash programs, which helps people meet their basic needs until they are able to support themselves. They offer emergency assistance, which helps with shelter payments such as past due rent to stop evictions or foreclosure. They offer GRH, which helps seniors and adults age 65 or older and/or adults with disabilities who have low income pay for housing costs and things people need to stay housed in certain group settings or in the community. They also offer child care assistance, which helps families pay for day child care so that parents can pursue employment or education, as for children aged 12 and younger. They also offer DWP, GA, MFIP, MSA, and RCA. For voter participation, as of 2020, the percent vote out was 79.96%. Minnesota is known for a politically active citizenry, with populism being a long-standing force among the state's political parties. The major political parties are the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor Party, aka DFL, and the Republican Party of Minnesota, along with the grassroots legalized cannabis and legalized marijuana now parties since 2018. The DFL was founded in 1944 when the Minnesota Democratic Party and Minnesota Farmer Labor Party merged. The party is affiliated with the National Democratic Party. The state was a Republican stronghold, never voting Democratic from statehood until 1932. However, since then it has voted Democrat all but thrice: 1952, 1956, and 1972. 1952 is also the last time the state voted for a non-incumbent Republican, and only once, 2016, has the state voted to the right of the nation since. Major issues. Minnesota may seem like a great place to live with rich history and government. However, there are some key issues. Minnesota's economy is the bedrock of our shared success, but Minnesota has diverged from the national trend of reducing taxes and reducing regulatory burdens. Instead, lawmakers have increased costs precipitously for employers and employees. This puts the state at a competitive disadvantage as our economic growth and investment are lagging. Since 2020, there has been net investment deficits of 54 projects, 2,500 jobs, and $6.6 billion in capital expenditures. Minnesota ranked 35th for GDP growth and 29th for job growth in the nation. Last session, nearly $18 billion surplus disappeared. Lawmakers raised taxes by $9 billion, a four-year tally, and increased spending in the next biennium by an unsustainable 36%. They must hold the line on tax and fee increases on businesses and prevent new onerous proposals that make Minnesota a national outlier. Minnesota is an interesting state. It's small and has a small population. It has a great history and great community, but its state demographics as well as major issues make it an unsustainable place to live.